Green Bay Packers. Obviously, there's one humongous storyline, but I do think there's some other ancillary ones that are almost as compelling as figuring out, is Jordan Love for real? So, Jack, you're locked in on this division. Packers, their off season likes and dislikes. What do you got?
I really like what the Packers did to set up Jordan Love, because obviously the Packers don't have a crazy amount of money. They've been kicking the can down the road for the past couple years to try and win a Super Bowl with Aaron Rodgers. It didn't work out, but they've reloaded quite beautifully. They go out and draft Luke Musgrave at the start of the second round, a player that I absolutely love out of Oregon State, and he looks every bit the part. He looks like he might finish second on the team in targets, in receptions, all those good stats behind Christian Watson, who we saw last year had his little mini Randy Moss type run. I think with more targets, with more work in the passing game, Christian Watson is going to exceed all expectations from last year. And then they go out and draft Jaden Reed, another receiver, a slot receiver out of Michigan State. He is a guy that I am a big fan of. He is going to be the wide receiver 2 on the Packers in short order, which kicks Romeo Doubs to the wide receiver 3, which is an upgrade because your wide receiver 2 going to your wide receiver 3, that is a good thing. And the offensive line is just still good. They bring back every starter, every depth piece from last year. It'll all come down to Jordan Love. If Jordan Love is good, they've set him up to be good. But if Jordan Love is bad, then this roster's not going to overcome it.
I agree with a lot of that. I think, as I've talked about a lot here in doing these, these previews, most teams are either taking it in two ways in regards to their quarterback. Either they're taking a can't miss prospect, or they're taking a guy that they think they can coach up if they surround him with enough weapons. And it certainly seems like with Jordan Love, it's the latter. When you have what Watson was able to do last year, even with Aaron Rodgers, and just the weapons that they have, they still have a really good running back field, Aaron Jones and Dillon. I just like, and as you mentioned, the offensive line, another group that I think is not mentioned enough when we're talking about upper tier offensive lines in this league. I just think that there's enough weapons here that if Jordan Love is what we think he is, this team can really contend. Like, I don't think it's going to be that big of a drop off. Obviously, just in the name, in the pedigree of Aaron Rodgers, it's a step down, but these young guys and just the way that this offense could look different now that Aaron Rodgers is no longer there. The fact that maybe they can get a little bit more modern, a little bit more dynamic, and not be so predicated on what Aaron likes to do. Now, Matt LaFleur can kind of open up the playbook a little bit more, maybe get some RPOs in there. I don't know, but with Jordan Love, you would like to think they would try to take advantage of his skill set. How do you think this offense will look now that Aaron Rodgers is gone and Jordan Love, potentially younger, faster, more dynamic, is in?
I think it'll be small tweaks, because we do remember when Matt LaFleur did come to the Green Bay Packers, there was a power struggle between him and Aaron Rodgers of the different types of plays, and Rodgers ended up relinquishing a lot of that power. But like you said, Jordan Love is younger, he's more athletic, he does have a more lively arm. Aaron Rodgers still one of the best passers in the NFL, but from a pure cannon, for a pure being able to throw it downfield, Jordan Love probably beats Aaron Rodgers at this point in their career. So it'll open up the playbook a little bit. They'll be able to do a little bit more with the bootlegs and maybe some RPOs, but Jordan Love's still not a big time rusher. It's not going to become a full option offense. It'll just be a little bit of tweaks. And for the most part, I think we'll see the biggest difference in the personnel that we see on field, because Aaron Rodgers, he had to have his guys. He had to have his comfort blankets. Right. That's why certain players would be on the field, like Mercedes Lewis, and certain players would be on the bench. And we're hearing already that could take place in the backfield. We could see less Aaron Jones this year and more A.J. Dillon, because Aaron Jones was the guy that made Aaron Rodgers feel comfortable. But the coaches want to see what A.J. Dillon can do in a lot of those situations.
That's certainly something for y'all going into your fantasy drafts. You heard what Jack just said. Maybe you don't take Aaron Jones so early, because it might be a real serious handcuff with him and A.J. Dillon. I think that's something that's very interesting. Musgrave at tight end. Certainly rookie, you're not sure what to expect. He certainly has some speed and some athleticism, more of a receiving tight end than a blocking one. is he a guy that could be a sleeper in terms of not necessarily fantasy impact, but in terms of this whole division has, Hawkinson, we have, the Bears with Komet. Like there's some young tight ends that look to be trying to establish themselves. Does Musgrave look the part?
Oh, he absolutely does. He really and truly does. He's already seen his ADP jump about 40 slots in drafts already, and that's just
Okay.
from the preseason. He didn't do a whole lot in the preseason because it's preseason. You don't have to. But from day one, from the first time they got together for mini camps, he was already the starting tight end. He's been working with Jordan Love for months now, which isn't something we typically see from rookie tight ends. Look at the Buffalo Bills. They spent a first round pick on Dalton Kincaid, and he's
Right.
not a full time starter yet.
Right.
Luke Musgrave has been from day one, and the Packers did draft him ahead of Jaden Reed. And so I believe Jaden Reed is going to end up as the wide receiver 2 on the team. But if Luke Musgrave is drafted before Jaden Reed, he might be the number 2 option in the passing game, period. I think Luke Musgrave is the one rookie tight end this year that you want in fantasy football. And I think he stands the best chance of being the guy to break out in 2023.
Great analysis there from Jack Cavanagh, Bleav in Lions, Bleav Podcast Network. Christian Watson, he's a guy that certainly flashed big playability. Now he's being entrusted to be the number 1. Have you seen enough to make you think he can be that guy for Jordan Love to be that lockstep? He is, not I don't think he's upper half in the league, but certainly has the ability and the size and the skill set and everything else to go along with it. How do you like Christian Watson?
Massive Christian Watson fan. He has all of the tools, as we saw last year. The efficiency was completely out of this world. There's no way that touchdown rate is able to stay steady, but he also showed that, hey, this guy probably deserves to see the ball more. He probably deserves more than 6 targets a game. Probably should be seeing 8 to 10 targets a game. So while I do think he takes a small step back in efficiency, I think he more than makes up for that with the big playability and with the increased target share. I think Christian Watson is going to be one of those players by the end of the year, is just a household name.
Dope. So I think defensively, I see a lot of names here that I know. I see a lot of names here that I recognize from other teams. And then there's a whole bunch of young players. And I think that this defense is kind of like a mosh posh unit of some vets sprinkled in with a whole bunch. Obviously, the knock on the Packers especially during the latter half of the Rodgers era, was they didn't really invest on offense, didn't really invest on giving them help. Well, they kept trying to invest on this defense. And, obviously Lucas Van Ness is the standout, being the first round pick. But talk to me about this defense, because to me, I'm kind of a mixed bag on what I think of this defense. Like, I'm not necessarily mad at the linebacking core. I'm not a fan of any 3-4, but I think in terms of what they've done here with, bringing in some guys off the edge, I'm okay with it. But to talk to me about this defense, because I'm still trying to figure out if I even like this unit or not.
So they've got all the talent in the world. There are just some red flags that come with the talent. Rashawn Gary, he was breaking out all over the place last year, and then he tears his ACL. So how healthy is he going to be? How dominant is he going to be? Kenny Clark is one of the best nose tackles in the NFL, but he's a nose tackle. Nose tackles don't make the difference that an edge rusher or a cornerback does. So while he is one of the best at his positions, he's not impacting the game as much as a Rashawn Gary at his peak. Preston Smith, he's been dominant in years past, but he's getting up there in age. Devontae Wyatt, who they drafted last year in the first round, and everyone was upset that they didn't help out Aaron Rodgers. He didn't do anything last year, so they need a big step forward from him. Quay Walker needs to stop getting kicked out of games like we saw in the Detroit Lions game when he ended up shoving that trainer. Stupid. And then there's the secondary. The secondary is dominant when healthy. Jair Alexander, one of the best cornerbacks in the NFL, when healthy, but he missed a lot of time last year. Cornerback 2, Eric Stokes, he's going to miss the start of the season. He's on injured reserve, so now they have Rasul Douglas go from the slot to an outside corner. They bring in Keyshawn Nixon. Those are good players, but it's still a downgrade from what they would typically be. And then it's the safeties. That is the biggest worry for the Green Bay Packers.
Agreed.
Darnell Savage got benched last year for Rudy Ford. Rudy Ford ends up getting benched again for Darnell Savage. Now those are the two starters because Adrian Amos ends up walking in free agency.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I don't know. They have all the talent in the world, as I said, but there are just some massive red flags. This could be a dominant defense, or this could be one of the worst in the NFL.
Yeah, I think specifically that backfield, that defensive backfield, as you mentioned, Jair Alexander, nobody is concerned about him. But as you said, if he can't be on the field, then what good is all that talent? But yes, those safeties. I mean, I'll hot take here. This might be the worst starting safety tandem in the league. I'll have to go back and check, but out of all the previews I've done of damn near every other division except the North, I don't think I've seen a worse potential starting tandem than Ford and Savage here. It's really bad.
Yeah, they're down there. Shout out Jonathan Owens, though. He is married to Simone Biles, so at least they've got that going for him.
He
She'll
got that going, yeah, for sure. He won there. He may get burnt, but he won off the field. So I'll go ahead and take a look here at the over and under the win total for the Green Bay Packers. 7.5. I think that's a little low. So I'm tempted to take the over there because I think the Jordan Love transition isn't going to be as rocky or won't take as long as people expect it to be. But, Jack, what do you think? Over, under 7.5 for the Green Bay Packers?
I'm taking the over. I think this is an 8-9 win football team. I do not think it's a 10-11 win football team, but I also don't think it's a 6-7 win football team. I think it is a slight over. I'm less confident in the overhitting than the Detroit Lions overhitting, but I'm not willing to disrespect the Packers that much. They took a step back, but not that big.